What's going on, baseball fans? How are we doing? So what an offseason this has been. Before the lockout, it was hectic. Everyone was signing left and right. We had the lockout. It was painful, miserable, and I wanted to cry myself to sleep every single night. And then after the lockout, it was just like before the lockout. Everyone's signing left and right. It's been one of the most chaotic off seasons I've ever seen. But I think it's safe to say that I think we're getting near the end here. So in this video, I'm going to give my grades for each team this offseason. Let's go talk about it. Let's start off with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Not a bad offseason, but not a great one either. If we go take a look at the Diamondbacks this offseason, really where they focused was the bullpen. And hey, for good reason too. If we go take a look at last year's team rankings when it came to relief pitching, the Diamondbacks were dead last with a negative 1.2 Fangraph WAR. And if we take a look at some of the guys that they added, hey, I think some pretty decent relievers, starting off with Mark Melancon. I thought that was a really nice, solid addition for that bullpen. This is a guy that's going to give you innings. He's going to give you consistency. Mark Melancon's really solid overall. Ian Kennedy, before he was traded to the Phillies at the deadline last year, was really good. Hopefully he can get that back on track. And then you had a high upside guy with Keone Kela. And they also, as of just today, added Oliver Perez. Oliver Perez, a veteran guy. He's 40 years old now. Had 5 games last year with the Indians, not the Guardians. Didn't give up a run last year. Overall, not too bad over those 5 games. His last really kind of full season where he pitched, he did pitch in 2020. It was a short season. Had pretty good numbers there. A 2 ERA, 3.14. 3.14 FIP. And then going back to 2019, he pitched in 67 games, had good numbers there overall. I think, honestly, this Diamondbacks bullpen is looking a lot better. And when you're taking a look at it, you got Melancon now, Kennedy. I mean, they got some okay arms as is, and I would imagine Oliver Perez is going to make his way into that bullpen. But I just feel like with the Diamondbacks, they probably could have added a bat, maybe another starting pitcher. So I'll give the Diamondbacks a C. I do like that they addressed that bullpen. I think what the Diamondbacks are planning to do, they're really relying on the guys that they have, the young talent they have in their minor league system. They're relying on some of these guys to bounce back, especially from injury. Like Ketel Marte missed a lot of time last year. So overall, I'll give the Diamondbacks a C. Moving on to the Atlanta Braves. What an offseason for the Atlanta Braves. The big one, trading for Matt Olson. Yes, very sad. Freddie Freeman leaving, going to the Dodgers. But man, oh man, you got a younger first baseman who you also signed to an 8-year contract, and he's going to be cheaper than Freddie Freeman was. This is a huge win for the Atlanta Braves overall. And then also taking a look at some of these additions they made for the bullpen. They really relied heavily on 3 lefties in the postseason last year, but now they've added some pretty serious righties in here. Kenley Jansen, a great track record. Sure, he's had his moments in the postseason, but Kenley Jansen overall has shown to be a very consistent arm. Adding someone like Colin McHugh, Tyler Thornburg could be a high upside add as well. Kirby Yates, I mean, who knows when he's going to come back? We'll have to wait and see on that. But they brought him in on a 2-year deal. Kirby Yates, he has a great track record as well. If he's healthy, that could be awesome for their bullpen as well. Eddie Rosario, bringing him back. Overall, the Atlanta Braves really are looking very good, and I think they're going to be an incredible team this coming year. I think they're going to be very dangerous. I mean, look at this lineup. Great-looking lineup. Rotation still looks very solid. The bullpen, just adding all these pieces to it. I think you have to give the Atlanta Braves an A. Moving on to the Baltimore Orioles. Listen, I know the Orioles are rebuilding right now, but I feel like they could have gone after an impact guy. They did go after Carlos Correa, who ended up signing with the Minnesota Twins on a 3-year deal. It was reported that they had offered a 10-year deal. So I do appreciate that they went after someone, gun-ho, if that report is true. Carlos Correa, I feel like, would have been amazing for the Baltimore Orioles. Would have been a really nice long-term piece that you could build around, especially with all these young guys coming up, like Adley Rutschman, Grayson Rodriguez, DL Hall. I thought that would have been really nice. But overall, they pretty much went for the home run there at the end, and they kind of just really didn't end up with a lot of guys. I mean, you brought in Ronald Odor, you brought in Jordan Lyles, Chirinos. I mean, I don't know. This is not really, it would have been great to see them do something like an impact signing like that, where it's kind of like what the Cubs are doing. The Cubs are in a bit more of a retool, but they added some pieces to, where in a couple of years where the Cubs, they're back to more of us being a strong contender. I feel like maybe the Orioles could have made a couple of moves like that because they do have a lot of young guys that are coming up. Would have been nice, but they're sticking the course. Overall, though, for this offseason, you have to give the Orioles an F. I don't really know what else to say. Moving on to my Boston Red Sox, man, oh man, they waited until the end to make their biggest move. The biggest move Chaim Bloom has made to date with the Red Sox signing Trevor Story. Huge move for them. If we go take a look, last year, the Red Sox ranked 20th on Fangraphs in defense. So Trevor Story is only going to help playing second base. He's going to be phenomenal there. There were, I guess some questions about his arm strength, but his range was never an issue. And at second base, Trevor Story, he's going to be phenomenal. I am really excited about that signing. I wanted Trevor Story all offseason. His bat fits perfectly at Fenway Park. Love that addition. Great move for the Red Sox overall. But there was also bringing back Jackie Bradley Jr. Yeah, it's great bringing back Jackie Bradley Jr., bringing him back to Boston. But this guy couldn't hit the side of a barn last year while sending over Hunter Renfroe, who was one of your better hitters last year. But you know what? I actually did like the trade because I think Jackie Bradley Jr., while Hunter Renfroe did have a lot of outfield assists last year, his overall defense in right field was not very good. Jackie Bradley Jr., he's really going to help improve that. And they brought in a couple of pretty good prospects. Alex Benelis, I think, has potential to be a really solid player down the road. David Hamilton, some nice infield depth in their system. Overall, I did like this trade, and I think it could pay off for the Red Sox defense. Where I am a little iffy with the Red Sox right now is the starting rotation. Losing Eduardo Rodriguez, this is a guy that gave you starts. He made his turn every fifth day. They did replenish the rotation by adding guys like Michael Walker, Rich Hill, James Paxton. Don't forget about him. I'm guessing it's going to be a little while before we see him. However, Chris Sale went down with a fractured rib. So hopefully a couple of months he'll be back. But they did make a couple more moves for the bullpen. Jake Diekman, Matt Strahm, I thought were pretty nice additions there, bringing back Hanzo Robles. They also brought in Travis Shaw. Overall, I think the Red Sox, when you're adding a guy like Trevor Story, that's just a phenomenal move, and you have him for over the next 6 years. There is an opt-out in there, but we'll have to wait and see if he does end up sticking out that whole contract. But with the Red Sox, I think you have to give them an A. I'm not trying to be biased here. I'm not trying to be Giraffe Neck Robbie, but at the end of the day, the Red Sox, when you're making a big signing like Trevor Story, especially when you don't know what Xander Bogaerts is going to do next year, is he going to opt out of his deal? And according to reports, definitely looks like that could happen. The Red Sox, I would have liked for them to maybe have added a more impact starting pitcher. I can deal with these smaller additions now for the rotation with Hill, Paxton, Walker. Let's see what they can do for that rotation. I like some additions for the bullpen. I think Diekman's going to be a nice option that can give you some strikeouts in the later innings. Hanzo Robles looked really good for the Red Sox last year. I'm glad they brought him back. So overall, Red Sox, they're an A. On to the Chicago Cubs. They had themselves a good offseason. Who knows how competitive this Cubs team will be, but they definitely did as much as they could to make themselves a competitive team in that Central, which honestly, I don't think it's out of the question that Central could be up for grabs. But the Cubs, adding someone like Seiya Suzuki, adding Andrelton Simmons for defense at shortstop. There were reports out there, they're going after Carlos Correa. That didn't quite work out. They didn't like the amount of years that Carlos Correa wanted, so they just went elsewhere and signed Simmons. Ooh, you know what? Yeah, the bat, it's not going to hit the side of a barn, but at least he's going to give you a good glove there. Don't forget, they got Nico Horner too, so Simmons could end up just moving to the bench at some point. Either way, good defense, but I love the addition of Seiya Suzuki and Marcus Stroman. I don't think he's an ace, but I think that's a really solid addition to add to your rotation. Listen, with the Cubs, they're not going to be quite there yet. This is going to be maybe 2-3 years before they're really serious contenders again, but they're on the right path. Also, adding, someone like David Robertson, who looked pretty good for the Rays last year. Someone like Michael Givens as well. They made some pretty nice additions here. Look at all the additions that they made just for the bullpen alone. Robertson, Givens, Martin, Norris, Jesse Chavez. They made a lot of additions, the Cubs. Also, someone like Yan Gomes as well, who I think could be a solid option. And who knows what's going to be happening with Wilson Contreras? Will he end up re-signing an extension with the Cubs. Not quite sure. But, for the Cubs, I'm going to give them an A. You know what? Because they went out there, they made moves. They could have just sat back. They could have just not really done anything, wait for these prospects to come up, kind of like what the Orioles did. The Cubs could have gone into just, an abysmal state, but they went out there and they made moves and they made the effort, and I appreciate that. So you know what? I'm going to give them an A. On to the other team in Chicago, the White Sox. I thought they had a pretty good offseason. The White Sox, they already, to be honest with you, they already have a pretty solid squad. I mean, look at the team they already had. Anderson, Moncada, Abreu, Grandal, Robert, Jimenez. They got some really good guys in this lineup. So it's not like they really needed to do a whole lot, but I like the addition of Josh Harrison. That's going to give you someone that can give you some versatility in that infield. He's going to give you a pretty good bat as well. I did like that addition. And as for the bullpen, I mean, adding guys like Kendall Graveman, that one was awesome for me. Don't forget about Joe Kelly. That's going to be a really nice addition. Overall, I think the White Sox had themselves a solid offseason. They didn't really have to do too much. I would have liked them to, kind of figure out what's going on in right field. You got Adam Angel there. Who's going to end up getting, the brunt of the playing time? Could we see Andrew Vaughn more out there? We're going to see some kind of a rotation. Would have been cool. Maybe you could have gone, the route of maybe a Michael Conforto, who is still out there. I'm not quite sure. I just didn't think the White Sox needed to do all that much. I'll give them a B. They added a couple good bullpen arms there with Graveman and Kelly. Josh Harrison was nice. Also, bringing back Lurie Garcia as well. I thought that was nice. But overall, I'll give the White Sox a B. On to the Cincinnati Reds. And the Reds, hey, I know a lot of people think they haven't looked all that great this offseason. They've been getting rid of a lot of guys, not re-signing Nick Castellanos, trading away Eugenio Suarez and Jesse Winker. But you know what? I might be one of the few that actually thinks the Reds, they did not have that bad of an offseason. I think they actually added some pretty nice pieces here. Again, sure, trading away a lot of guys. Also, Amir Garrett, too, they traded away. But, back in that trade, they were able to add Mike Minor. I did like that. But as for the big trade, Jesse Winker, Eugenio Suarez, I did like the pieces that they brought back. Brandon Williamson, who I think is a very underrated guy. This is good. This could be a really solid middle of the rotation picture for you down the road. Adding someone like Justin Dunn, who has some advanced numbers that look pretty good. I also really like the addition of Jake Fraley, who, if healthy, if he can just be consistent, stay on the field, I think this is a really good on-base kind of a guy. But the big one that they traded away was Sonny Gray. But you know what? Even though they did not get a lot in return, I do like Chase Petty. He's a young kid, but he's a flamethrower kid. Who knows? Maybe this could end up being, possibly a future closer down the road. And if, worse, maybe, just a really good arm for your bullpen. I think he has a lot of relief risk in there. Could he be a starting pitcher? I don't know. There's some command issues with him. He seems to only have a couple of pitches, fastball, slider. We're going to have to wait and see what he ends up being. But, hey, a first-round draft pick last year. It was nice that they at least got someone like that back in return. Overall, I don't think they had a bad offseason. You would have liked for them to do more. I'll give them a C because they did bring in some pretty good young players, but that's as far as I'll go with the Reds. I'm not going to put them D or F, just simply because, it's just because they didn't add any big names, and they traded away some bigger names. I don't think that's a bad offseason. I like the young players they brought in. So Cincinnati, a C. Moving on to the Cleveland Guardians. No, not the Indians. It is now the Guardians. But what the heck did they even do this offseason? They didn't do anything, which I think is extremely disappointing. I mean, not like they have a lot of young players. I get that. Those guys could, end up making their way up to the major league level, but just disappointing. Name change, maybe could have gone out there and gotten someone, anyone, and they didn't really do it. Sure, they exercised Jose Ramirez's club option. They declined Roberto Perez's club option. Just not really anything. And that's disappointing to me considering, the whole name change. I don't know. I just feel like they could have done something. I'm just going to make this short and sweet. An F for the Guardians. The Colorado Rockies. Man, oh man. They had themselves a good offseason, whether you like to admit it or not. They had themselves a good offseason. So the Chris Bryant, obviously the big one. Now, I know a lot of people out there thinking like, okay, what was the point of this? They traded away Nolan Arenado. In the end, Chris Bryant, this is a guy, he's versatile. He's going to be able to play multiple positions. I understand Nolan Arenado, he was a premier defender at third base, but the advantage of having a Chris Bryant is it gives you a lot more versatility. They have a lot of versatile players on this roster, so guys can keep moving around. That's really going to be effective for this Rockies team. And Chris Bryant, hey, he's a solid bat. He's going to fit really well, especially at Coors Field. I really love the addition of Chris Bryant. It's going to be a little less money than, Arenado, if you include the $50 million that they did send over to the Cardinals, which, again, I have to say this. I've been saying it till I'm blue in the face. They had to pay the $50 million because they were underwater on Nolan Arenado's contract. I don't know how many times I got to say that. People keep throwing it out there like they just said, oh, hey, we'll give you $50 million. No big deal. They had to give the $50 million because Nolan Arenado had a negative $43 million value. They gave $50 million so they could get some younger players in return. And hey, one of those younger players, Montero, who came back in that trade, third base prospect, number 4 prospect in the Rockies system right now on MLB Pipeline, could be really good down the road, just saying. But I digress. Looking at this offseason, Chris Bryant, love it. Hey, Jose Iglesias, the glove last year just didn't look all that great when he was on the Angels. He said himself wasn't very motivated. Looked a little better with the Red Sox when he was playing with them. I liked those signings for them. Alex Colomé, I think, will be decent for the bullpen. Let's see how he'll fit in Coors Field. I mean, sure, losing Trevor Story, John Gray, not great. But I do love that they extended Ryan McMahon. They brought back C.J. Cron. They brought back Antonio Senzatella. I really like what the Rockies did this offseason. I know it might be a little confusing, but just looking at what they did this offseason, it's really not that bad at all. I mean, looking at this Rockies team right now, I mean, it's not a bad-looking lineup, especially with Chris Bryant right there. You got Brendan Rodgers, who I think could be an electric player next year. Look out for him. I love Ryan McMahon. I think he's overall a very solid player offensively and defensively. Jose Iglesias, if that glove, is looking pretty good, hey, that's going to be just great for you. That's only going to improve your up-the-middle defense. Could they maybe still add a guy? I still think someone like Michael Conforto, who's still out there, would be a really nice addition. He would be a much better addition or a much better right fielder than Raimel Tapia. I would love for the Rockies to go get Michael Conforto. Will they do it? I don't know. But overall, I'm giving the Rockies a B. I think they could have done a little bit more. They were really going gun-ho here, bringing in Chris Bryant, Iglesias, Colomé for the bullpen. It would have been nice if maybe they were able to get a starting pitcher. I understand that might be kind of difficult for the Rockies to do. Not a lot of pitchers want to go to Coors. But it would have been nice if maybe they could have worked out some kind of a trade somewhere. But then again, I understand the Rockies are still trying to rebuild that farm system. I just would have liked something for this rotation, something to replace John Gray. That would have been really nice. So overall, though, you got to give the Rockies some credit. I know they're going to get a lot of hate because of, obviously, with Nolan Arenado, but give them some credit. They made some moves. Who knows? Maybe the Rockies could be a surprising team this year. On to the Detroit Tigers. Man, I'm going to tell you, I really thought they were going to get Carlos Correa this offseason, and then they ended up getting Javier Baez, which, hey, at the end of the day, that's not a bad fallback option, but that was their first big one. Well, actually, no, their first big one was Eduardo Rodriguez. That's going to be a nice addition for the rotation, but Javier Baez, that's going to be a solid guy. Hopefully he can keep up the on-base skills like he was showing with the Mets. We'll have to wait and see how he does with the Tigers, but overall, I thought the Tigers, they did pretty well adding Andrew Chafin for the bullpen. I was on the record saying I thought he would be great for their bullpen because they got a lot of potential in that bullpen. Adding someone like Chafin is a steady veteran arm to add there for the next few years, while they're trying to build up to being more of a contender. I think Chafin is a really nice guy for that bullpen. Adding Pineda, Pineda, at the end of the day, probably looking more like a back-end kind of a guy. But hey, if he can be healthy, that's some depth for the rotation. And honestly, this rotation is not looking all that bad to me. Rodriguez, Mize, Skubal, Manning, Pineda. You're looking for these young guys to take a step forward, and that's going to be the big key. Eduardo Rodriguez, I don't think he's an ace. Being on my Red Sox for, however many years now, I don't think he's an ace. I think he's a really solid 2-3. I'm looking for Casey Mize to take a step forward this year, be that ace guy of their rotation, show what he is capable of. For the Tigers, I think they had themselves a good offseason. To me, I think some people would say maybe a B, but you know what? I'm going to give him an A because they went out there, they got a really good starting pitcher, a really good shortstop, a solid piece of the bullpen in Chafin. I'll give him an A. Hey, look at that. A, B, C, D. Interesting. Moving on to the Houston Astros. I mean, hey, Astros fans, I know, bummer losing Carlos Correa, going to the Twins, but you still got Jeremy Pena, who I think could be a really solid shortstop. But other than that, not a lot going on. You did bring in you brought him back. I mean, it was looking like maybe he was going to go to the Yankees at one point, maybe the Braves, but the Astros were able to come in last second, bring him back. But other than that, just not really a whole lot going on. They brought in Nico Goodrum, who can be some infield depth. You know, they brought in Lewis Brinson, you know, maybe could give you some upside there. I don't know, just not really a lot going on. Hector Neris for the bullpen. You know, I don't know. I'm just not really seeing a whole lot here. Verlander, obviously, you know, hey, won the Cy Young a couple of years ago, so that's great bringing back Justin Verlander. But he's not getting any younger. He's 39 years old. How is he going to do? We're going to have to wait and see. Overall, I do think that was really good for them to bring him back. But other than that, they just didn't do a whole lot. I'm going to give him a D. I'm not going to give him an F, obviously, because they brought back Verlander. That's their ace. But other than that, not a whole lot going on for the Astros, so I give them a D. On to Kansas City. You know, Kansas City, the Royals, they did do a couple of things. I do like them bringing back Zach Greinke. Hey, finish off your career in Kansas City where it started. I think that's a nice little story. But, I mean, other than that, I don't know, man. You brought in Amir Garrett for the bullpen. You know, you made a couple of moves. I don't know. You brought in some minor league guys. I'm not feeling this, man. I'm not really feeling a whole lot here with Kansas City. I like that they made a couple of moves. Amir Garrett could be pretty good for that bullpen. I mean, really the key with Kansas City right now is just waiting for some of these young guys to come up. They still got a couple of decent players. I just don't know how far this team is going to go. You know, I don't know. It's really just these young players. That's going to be a big factor here. You know, Barlow and Garrett at the back end of the bullpen could be nice. I don't know. I guess at least Kansas City made a couple of moves. I'll give them a D. You know what I like about the Angels this offseason is that they didn't go out there and go give a big contract for a position player. I was wondering, are they going to go bring in Story because they needed a shortstop? But instead, they focused on what they needed to focus on, and that was pitching. Bringing in Noah Syndergaard, I like that a lot. Bringing in some bullpen guys like Aaron Loop, Ryan Tepera, Archie Bradley. You know, I really like what the Angels did. I really am a big fan. There's still some question marks here. Noah Syndergaard, what's going to happen with him coming back from Tommy John? You know, Shohei Ohtani, as good as he was last year, I'm hoping he can stay durable. I hope they have him, you know, figured out when it comes to his innings, you know, because that's been the problem with Ohtani is just being healthy to pitch. He's always been able to hit, but they're going to need him atop that rotation. But they do have more depth here. Also, Michael Lorenzen, forgot to mention him. So I like that they added some depth to the rotation. They just didn't have a whole lot. Noah Syndergaard is a huge, high upside kind of a guy. If you bring him in and he can give you 30 starts and be the old Syndergaard before getting hurt, man, that's going to be a huge addition. Overall, I'm going to give the Angels an A. Because they went and did what they needed to do. They added pitching. They added a couple of starters. They added guys for the bullpen. But I also just like that they didn't go out there and go get a position player on a big contract. So I'll give them some points for that. I'm in a good mood. The Angels, I'll give them an A. On to the other LA team, the Dodgers, and man, oh man, is that lineup looking quite scary with the addition of Freddie Freeman. Huge signing. I was wondering, man, is he actually going to come to my Red Sox? Is he going to go to the Rays? I mean, good grief. But Freddie Freeman for that lineup is going to be awesome. But it wasn't just Freddie Freeman. Yeah, remember Chris Taylor? They brought him back. I was wondering if he was going to go elsewhere. He had a lot of suitors. He could have really fit on pretty much any team out there. Good for the Dodgers for bringing him back. You know, I like that they brought in some depth for this rotation. If we go take a look here, because you don't know what's going on with Trevor Bauer, Max Scherzer, now with the Mets. We'll talk about that soon. But hey, you know what? I like the depth that they added. A lot of lefties here. Andrew Heaney. They added Anderson. I like that. You know, to me, that's what I think the Dodgers really needed to focus on was some pitching depth, especially you don't know what's going on with Trevor Bauer. Also bringing back Clayton Kershaw, of course. How could I forget that? But, you know, with Kershaw, he's had some nagging injuries over the last few years. You know, can you finally, you know, get some more starts out of Clayton Kershaw? What's going to happen with him? So overall, I still think the Dodgers are an extremely dangerous team. Adding Freeman, bringing back Chris Taylor, I thought that was really nice. And you know what, for the Dodgers, they got so many guys in this farm system as well that could come up and contribute. So it's not like they need to go out there and go gun-ho in free agency and try and sign everyone like the Mets, who we will talk about soon. But yeah, I think you got to give the Dodgers an A here. I mean, Freddie Freeman alone, what a great signing. That's going to be awesome, especially after losing Corey Seager. That was a massive loss, but to bring in someone like Freeman to replace that left-handed bat, very good. Dodgers with an A. Listen, I know Derek Jeter left the Marlins, but you know what? I think the Marlins had themselves a pretty good offseason. I would have loved Nick Castellanos in that lineup. That, to me, was the perfect fit. Nick Castellanos would have been huge. The Marlins last year, their offense was absolutely atrocious. If we go take a look at where they ranked last year offensively, they were 28th last year in offensive runs above average. They really needed to add some bats. And you know what? They went out and did that. I mean, just this past weekend, adding Jorge Soler. I really did like that. But also Aviseo Garcia. And taking a look at some other guys they added here, too, in some trades. Jacob Stallings, Joey Wendell. I really like those additions. Just good, solid, veteran players. I think this young Miami Marlins team really needed it. And Jorge Soler, he looked great with the Braves. I think this is such a nice fit for them. How much outfield will he play? Not quite sure. With the DH, I could see Soler being more of a DH, which, hey, I'm completely fine with that because that bat alone, if he can just let him focus on that bat, I think it's going to be really good. But overall, that's pretty much it there. They made some pretty solid moves overall. I'm going to give them a B. If they had signed Castellanos, man, that would have been an A. But, you know, with Soler, I think that's good for a B. The Milwaukee Brewers, still a very solid-looking team, but just didn't do all that much this offseason. The big acquisitions were Andrew McCutchen and Hunter Renfroe, two right-handed bats that I think could really pay dividends for this Brewers team. Also, we just talked about Jackie Bradley Jr. earlier, you know, getting rid of that bat. While, yes, he did provide some good defense, that bat was really just, with a team that just needed offense, where last year they only ranked 22nd. It did improve after adding Willy Adames, but Jackie Bradley Jr. was not helping that offense at all. So Andrew McCutchen, Hunter Renfroe, I do like those additions. If we take a look here, I mean, hey, it's not a bad-looking lineup now, especially with these two bats in here. You did lose Aviseo Garcia, but Hunter Renfroe is essentially replacing him and cheaper as well. And then McCutchen, good, solid veteran player. They're going to need Christian Yelich to bounce back. They need to get this guy going. They need to get his slugging back up. So hoping for a big year from Christian Yelich. Other than that, not too much here. It's not like they really needed to do a lot. You know, starting pitching was really good last year. One of the best rotations in the game. Bullpen still looks pretty good. I did like that they really didn't go crazy with it. There were rumors out there, maybe they were going to trade Hader. I like that they kept him, you know, because this Brewers team is still looking pretty good. Overall for the offseason, I'll give them a C. You know, adding a couple of pretty good right-handed bats and Renfroe and McCutchen. Just not a whole lot else, you know. Could they have made a splash somewhere else? No. But I'll go in the middle for the Brewers at a C. On to the New York Mets. Let's just make this quick and easy here. We're putting the Mets at an A. I mean, holy cow, they made a lot of moves, man. Are you kidding me? Mark Canha, Eduardo Escobar, Starling Marte. That's going to give them some versatility that they really needed last year. They had some injuries last year, and that really hurt them. But it didn't end there. Max Scherzer, are you kidding me? Max Scherzer for this rotation with Jacob deGrom. Now, I still do think there are some question marks with this rotation, you know, health-wise with Jacob deGrom. You know, Scherzer had the dead arm at the end of last season, but I don't think that's really going to be too big of a deal. But deGrom, I'm going to pay attention to deGrom. If those guys are healthy and they each give you 30 starts and they're good to go for the playoffs, holy cow, watch out. But it wasn't just the free agent signings, also trading for Chris Bassett. I mean, wow. I mean, this rotation is just looking really good. With Chris Bassett, this guy's a gamer. He's going to go out there. He's going to pitch every fifth day. This rotation, man, it has potential. No lefties, which I think it's fine. I don't think you need a lefty, but it would be nice to have a lefty here. But Carrasco, I actually really liked when they had him, you know, come over in that trade as well. The prior offseason, with Francisco Lindor, Carrasco, you know, last year couldn't really just get himself going all that much. But, you know, hey, one season removed from that. Come back this year. Let's see what he can do. Tyler McGill, this guy's got some really good advanced numbers, so be on the lookout for him. As for the bullpen, you did lose Aaron Loop. I was not a fan of that. Would have really liked for them to bring him back. They did bring back Adam Ottavino, and, hey, I saw Ottavino a lot last year with the Red Sox. Very good in the first half. Second half, not so much. So I do think if there is one area that could be weak with this Mets team, it is the bullpen a little bit. So, but overall, just really good starting pitching. This lineup looks great. Also, hey, Robinson Cano coming back. Who knows? Robinson Cano could end up being a decent contributor. We'll have to see how he is. Tested positive for PEDs, which got him the suspension, but he's coming back this year. So I think this Mets team, man, it has potential to be really good. The only thing I do have a little bit of a concern about is just their overall depth in the organization. Can they make it over a full 162? That was something last year where it really showed. The lack of depth really showed last year. So, but, with all these moves they made, good grief. What an offseason for the Mets. Easy A. On to the other team in New York, the Yankees. What an interesting offseason for the Yankees. They're always involved with the big players out there. They were, in reports for Carlos Correa. They were in reports for Freddie Freeman. But in the end, the big one that they ended up making was trading for Josh Donaldson and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and then sending back Gio Urshela and Gary Sanchez. Honestly, the Yankees are just going to get points alone trading away Gary Sanchez. Thank God. It's about time. I don't know why they held on to this guy for so long. I think Gary Sanchez, have him go be more of a designated hitter over in Minnesota. I think this guy could easily 30, 40 home runs. Stop having him worry about catching. He's a brick when it comes to being a catcher. Have him focus on hitting, which he's really good at. He could be a really good designated hitter for the Twins. But the Yankees, they were just not using him properly. Urshela is a bit tough to lose, but you're getting back Josh Donaldson. If this guy's healthy, this guy's going to be awesome for you. He's just going to add a little bit of spunk in that Yankee clubhouse, which I really do like. Donaldson, a bit of an outspoken kind of a guy. He's going to give some energy here. He is projected for some good numbers. 246 average, whatever, but a 355 on base, 467 slugging. He's going to give you some decent defense out there. Overall, though, what happens with Gleyber Torres? Is the Yankees offseason quite done? I'm not too sure. As of right now, I don't know what Fangraphs is thinking here. Have DJ LeMahieu on the bench behind Gleyber Torres? That's not going to happen. DJ LeMahieu will be their second baseman after they brought back Anthony Rizzo, which I think is a really nice signing as well. He's projected for some good numbers next year. Anthony Rizzo, good clubhouse guy. Really like that. But where's Gleyber Torres going? And this is where the Yankees do fall short of getting an A. I'm going to give them a B, and here's why. They need a number 2 guy. Yankee fans, listen, Luis Severino, when this guy's on, when he's healthy, yes, obviously this guy can be a number 2 for you. But you don't know what you're going to get out of him. Yes, he looked pretty good in a small sample size last year, but Luis Severino, honestly, to me, I don't know why he's listed as a number 3. I think he's a 2 here. I understand Jordan Montgomery was obviously healthy last year. I digress. But I think the Yankees needed to add a starter. I think they needed to add someone for this rotation, and they still could. There still could be a trade out there where maybe you involve Gleyber Torres, maybe someone like an Oswald Peraza if they're willing to part with him. They got some prospects in that system. If they wanted to go trade for another starter, I think that would be huge for them. That, to me, if they went out and got a starter, they would move up to an A. This offseason's not done. Maybe we can revisit this, but for now, I do. Also, let me touch on Isaiah Kiner-Falefa at short. They really needed a guy with a glove and some speed. Kiner-Falefa, he's going to give you both of those. Maybe not too much with a slugging percentage. They got other guys that can give you slugging. They got all these slugging percentages in here. Aaron Judge, Stanton, Gallo. These are going to be the heavy hitters here, along with Donaldson as well. Aaron Hicks, I also would have liked for them to have maybe upgraded in center field. I don't know, just Aaron Hicks, when he's healthy, he can be a good on-base guy. I just don't know. What is his health going to be like? I'm not quite sure. The Yankees offseason feels like at this point in time is not done. And as of right now, it's just a B to me. If they got another starter, maybe got another outfielder, easy A. But for now, a B. On to the Oakland A's, and yes, they've been in a bit of a fire sale here. They've already traded away a few guys. They still got a couple left, though, with Frankie Montas and Sean Manaea trading away Matt Chapman, trading away Chris Bassett, as well as Matt Olson. So they still have a couple of guys left. Their offseason's not done, I would assume. But for Oakland, as of right now, making this video, I really like some of these prospects they brought in. I loved them bringing in Shea Langeliers, Christian Pache. You know, the bat hasn't really gotten going so far in his career, but an amazing glove. He's going to be a great outfielder for them. Bringing Gunnar Hoglund, who to me, I think was, yes, he is coming off of Tommy John, but I think he's going to be one of the more sure starting pitchers. Look out for Gunnar Hoglund. I loved Kevin Smith coming back in the Matt Chapman trade. This is a corner infielder who can end up being really good for you. Overall, I mean, and also, hey, JT Ginn as well in the Chris Bassett trade. And Ryan Cusick as well. I loved what the A's did, to be completely honest. And what they have brought in some quality prospects here. That's what they needed to do. And you know what? Maybe this is a little ridiculous. I'm giving them an A. Because look at these prospects they brought in. Are you kidding me? These are great prospects. Yes, they got rid of star players, but hey, the A's, they're not going to re-sign these guys. They don't got the money. Bring in some quality prospects. I'm giving the A's an A, and they're not even done. They still got Montas, who's going to give you a haul. They still got Manaea, who's going to give you a couple of prospects. I'm giving them an A. You know, maybe that's a little too crazy, but you know what? I'm in a good mood, and I love these prospects they brought in. I'm giving the A's an A. The Philadelphia Phillies, man oh man, that lineup is looking quite good. Taking a look at the additions of Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos, fantastic. You know why this is fantastic? Because they needed on-base percentage at the top of the order. They were one of the worst teams at the top of the order last year when it came to on-base percentage. They ranked 29th overall. Terrible. They added two guys that can get on base very well. These are game-changer kind of bats. Kyle Schwarber was a game-changer for the Red Sox last year. Look what he did. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be great. It was rumored out there, they were going to go after one of these guys. They ended up getting both. This is fantastic. Bryce Harper, man, he's letting his voice be heard in that organization. They want to win. Honestly, this Phillies team is looking really good. Great looking lineup, great looking rotation, and then Corey Knebel as well. Don't forget about Brad Hand. Good, solid bullpen pieces. What a great offseason for the Phillies. Easy A, in my opinion. The Pittsburgh Pirates. This one's kind of hard to grade because the Pirates are just strictly rebuilding right now. Looking at some of the moves, they did trade Jacob Stallings. They brought back Zach Thompson, who I think could be a pretty decent arm to add to that organization. But other than that, not really a whole lot going on. You brought in Roberto Perez, Daniel Vogelback, Heath Hembree, Austin Bryce. I don't know. These guys are basically just here to fill some time. Yoshi Sasugo, you got it on a one-year deal. They did bring in Jose Quintana. I don't know. I don't really know how to do this one. Yeah, I don't know. Because, the Pirates, their goal right now isn't to go out there and spend money, which is, not really like they're ever going to spend a whole lot of money anyway. Bob Nutting never wants to spend any money there. But I don't know. With the Pirates, I guess, I don't know. They made a couple of moves, but nothing impactful. I don't really know where to go here. They made a couple of moves. They brought in a prospect. I'll go a D or an F. I'll just go F. They didn't really do anything. On to the Padres. A bit of a deflating offseason, to be honest. But, overall, not a bad offseason. Don't forget, bringing in Bob Melvin, new manager. I think that's going to be really good for them. I think that's honestly going to be their biggest addition for the whole offseason. But taking a look at what the Padres did, not a whole lot. They brought in Nick Martinez over from Japan on a 4-year deal that could end up being some pretty decent depth for your rotation, which, to be completely honest, they sorely needed. They really, really lacked depth in that rotation last year. They tried having Jake Arrieta save the day, and look how that turned out. But getting Mike Clevinger back, so this rotation does look good on paper. I do worry about Joe Musgrove. Hopefully he can keep the arm healthy. He's had some problems in the past. Darvish, hey, 35 years old, going to be 36 soon. I think he's going to end up being fine. Snell, up and down year last year, had some good bright spots. And then Clevinger, hey, we've been waiting for Clevinger. Remember when he got traded a couple of years ago? Everyone was really hyped about that. And I'm really excited to see Clevinger again, honestly. Overall, you brought in Robert Suarez, who, it's a pretty decent arm. He's projected for some good numbers. Taking a look at Suarez, didn't pitch last year, but he is projected for some good numbers. 3.76 ERA. So we'll have to wait and see how he does. Overall, he's still got Hosmer and Myers on this payroll. I think that did prevent them from being able to make some signings, some bigger signings, because they did not want to go over that CBT. They were over the CBT last year, didn't make the playoffs, so ownership did not want that. But then probably their biggest move overall, Luke Voit. I think Luke Voit is going to be a really nice move. It's going to be great for just everyone involved. It clears the Yankees of a roster spot. It gives the Padres some much needed slugging percentage. If we go take a look last year at slugging percentage, the Padres only ranked 21st overall. They needed another guy, and Luke Voit now, he has an opportunity to just have a fresh start and just, hey, if he's going to be mostly a DH, which I think is what he needs to focus on, instead of being on his feet so much, that lower body tends to get a lot of injuries with him. I think this is a great spot for him. I really liked this move for the Padres. They just didn't do all that much, so I'm going to give them a C overall. Like the moves. Actually, maybe I'll go a B. Do I go B? No, I'll leave it at a C. It's too bad that they couldn't add maybe a more of an impact kind of a player, like someone like Nick Castellanos. I think would have been huge for them. Luke Voit was a nice fallback option. They were involved with Seiya Suzuki, didn't end up getting him. Overall, I'll go C for the Padres. On to the Seattle Mariners. I think there's a lot of people out there that are excited to see what the Mariners can do, not just because of all these young players like Julio Rodriguez coming up, but man, they had themselves a good offseason. Taking a look here at some of these guys, Robbie Ray was the big one, but then also making the trade with the Reds for Eugenio Suarez and Jesse Winker. Also bringing in Adam Frazier from the Padres. I think that was really nice. Overall, Jesse Winker, I do like Jesse Winker, but he is very one-sided when it comes to, hitting lefties and righties. Definitely better against righties. Against lefties, he's abysmal. So maybe they can help him in that department. Maybe they can get him going against lefties a bit more. Eugenio Suarez is going to add some power. Very good second half for him last year, and I think the Mariners valued him more because of that second half. Taking a look at how the Mariners are looking, very good-looking team. I do, again, with Winker, I do understand he's not good against lefties, but I think it's going to be a nice bat for that lineup, along with Suarez, too. Bench is looking pretty good. Rotation with Robbie Ray at the top is looking good. They did send back Justin Dunn to the Reds, but hey, that opens up a spot for one of these young guys, maybe someone like Matt Brash. Don't forget about George Kirby. So I think that was probably a reason behind it. They thought, all right, we'd rather go with someone like Brash or Kirby, maybe even Emerson Hancock if he can make some strides. I think they did think that when it came to sending back Dunn. Dunn, to me, was more, he needed either a new environment to be a starter, or he was just going to be a long reliever for the Mariners, honestly. They did not really do too much for this bullpen. Don't forget about Ken Giles. They are going to be getting Ken Giles. Remember, they signed him last year, and then so they will be getting him back. So I think that's one reason why they were okay with not really going after anyone. But this bullpen was huge for them last year, and having Ken Giles, if he's healthy, that's only going to help you out. So this Mariners team, man, they had themselves a good offseason. Listen, when you're adding the Cy Young winner and Robbie Ray, adding a couple of good bats, the only thing that I really did want the Mariners to get Chris Bryant. I thought that would have been awesome for them. But in the end, hey, you're not adding a big contract like Bryant. You added a couple of players that are under control for the next few seasons, and Suarez doesn't cost a lot of money. So the Mariners ended up going that route. They didn't want to give all that money to Bryant, but overall, though, the Mariners, good offseason for them. I'm giving them an A. On to the San Francisco Giants. Yes, very tough losing Buster Posey and Chris Bryant, but the Giants, I liked what they did going for upside. I think Seiya Suzuki would have been awesome for them, but in the end, ended up going to the Cubs. They did bring in Jock Peterson. I think that could be a nice bat for them, but the big ones were Carlos Rodon. That's a big upside kind of a guy. He looked fantastic last year, but ended up getting hurt in the second half. I think if he pitched a full season, that guy would have gotten the Cy Young. And don't forget about Matthew Boyd, who they just signed recently, just a few days ago. That's a high upside guy too. He did look pretty good last year, but ended up, having some problems with the arm. Other than that, though, not a whole lot going on. The Giants, again, they took the high upside route. So we're going to have to wait and see how everything turns out. They're very lefty heavy in this lineup. I mean, they got tons of lefties here, but they got all these righties on the bench. So I think the way the Giants are going to be approaching this coming season, really going with a lot of platoons, going matchups. And the Giants, they're a good, smart organization when it comes to analytics. I think the Giants can end up being fine. And then also, hey, don't forget, with this rotation, you also brought in Alex Cobb. This is a guy last year, if you take a look at his numbers, only 18 starts, but good numbers overall, 3.76 ERA. He had a good FIP last year. I like the way the rotation looks. Webb, Rodon, DeSclafani as your 3. I really like that. And then Matthew Boyd, who, eventually, maybe halfway through the season, June, could end up coming into this rotation. They got depth. I like what the Giants did. There's not a lot of splashes overall. They made some good moves. High upside. I did like that. I'll give them a B overall. I think the St. Louis Cardinals could be a really good team this year, but I was a little underwhelmed with their offseason overall. I did like the addition of Steven Matz. I think that was very nice. But now what's going on with Jack Flaherty? Not quite sure. Alex Reyes, he's going to be gone for at least a couple of months. They didn't really add anyone for this bullpen. Again, Steven Matz was nice. Good thing they added him because who knows how long Flaherty's going to be out. And you got Michaelis and Hudson too. They didn't really pitch a whole lot. Actually, Hudson didn't pitch at all. Really all that much last year. 8 innings last year. Michaelis had 44. But you just don't know. This rotation's a question mark. I feel like there's some holes in this bullpen. They did add Corey Dickerson, I thought was nice. But overall, to me, it's just an underwhelming offseason for the Cardinals. I feel like they could have done more. I'm going to give them a D overall. The Tampa Bay Rays are still a very strong-looking team, and in my opinion, I still think the favorites for that division. Starting off with Wander Franco, getting him signed up to a huge extension, an 11-year deal, 21 years old. Good for him to lock up a very good extension like that, and for the Rays as well. This is going to be their star player, and hey, they were in on Freddie Freeman. It looked like they were right there until the end, and they just missed out on him. That would have been cool to see well, as a Red Sox fan, no, I would have hated that. But, to see the Rays go after someone like Freeman like that, you don't ever see them do that. So good for them for at least making a pretty good effort. They also, made a couple of other moves as well. Corey Kluber, I think that it could be really interesting. The Rays are very good at managing these guys, managing these pitchers, managing their innings. I think Kluber, a nice veteran guy for this rotation. They lost Charlie Morton, last year to the Braves. So I think Kluber is a nice veteran addition to essentially replace him. With these, you got a lot of youth in this rotation. Patino at the back end. I think Kluber was a nice addition. Also, Brooks Raley, I thought was a really nice addition. If you take a look at his numbers last year, I mean, sure, 4.78 ERA, but he's gonna be a solid lefty, and they use these righty-lefty matchups very well. So I think he's gonna be a nice addition for them. And then there was also the trade with Luke Raley. I think this guy has a lot of potential. Look out for him down the road. There's rumors out there of maybe them looking into an Austin Meadows trade, so maybe they're not quite done this offseason. Kevin Kiermaier ended up staying. I still like this Rays team. It's still very strong in my opinion. This offseason didn't really, trade away a lot of those prospects, so they're still very prospect rich. So hey, the Rays, this organization, they're running really well. I'm going to give them a B. Getting Wander Franco locked up, bringing in someone like Kluber, I thought was nice. But other Rays, I'll go B. The Texas Rangers, man, oh man, what a splash they made before the lockout, bringing in Seager and Semien on back-to-back days. Are you kidding me? That lineup now, man, with those two, it is looking pretty nice. I'm not going to lie. They were supposedly involved with the Matt Olson talks, ended up going to the Braves, but you still got a good young first baseman under control in Nate Lowe. Where I thought, the Rangers, they could have maybe made another move. I know they went out there, spent a lot of money on those two players, but it would have been nice to see if they added someone for this rotation. They did get John Gray, so yes, they did add someone, but I feel like John Gray, he's not the ace. So they still have work to do. Martin Perez, listen, I think Martin Perez is okay. I just don't think he's a game changer at all. He's going to give you innings. So overall, it was a very good step in the right direction, an excellent step in the right direction. I think you have to give them an A. I mean, when you're going out there and you're signing 2 impact players like Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, give them another year. You give them another 2 years. You got some good young arms in that system that are coming up. Jack Leiter, to name one specifically, along with Cole Winn as well. I mean, this Rangers team, they're going in the right direction, and a very good offseason. Incredible. I mean, you don't ever see a team just add 2 players like that in one offseason. It doesn't happen very often, and the Rangers, they did that. Again, very good step in the right direction. They get an A. Who would have thought the Minnesota Twins were going to be a player this offseason? Are you kidding me? Holy cow. Adding Carlos Correa? What a massive move. I mean, he was rumored to go to teams like the Yankees, the Cubs, the Red Sox, big market teams. The Twins never spend money. And then all of a sudden, Carlos Correa was a Minnesota Twin in the middle of the night. Are you kidding me? It just still blows my mind to this point. But in a way, I'm not surprised because, hey, they traded away Josh Donaldson, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. With Kiner-Falefa leaving, that opens up shortstop. With Donaldson going to the Yankees, that gave them all the payroll to be able to go after Correa. I mean, a heck of a move by the Twins. But it didn't stop there. Like I mentioned, the trade with the Yankees, they were able to bring in Urshela Sanchez. Urshela is going to give you good defense at third. Sanchez, if you can just let him hit, keep him away from catching. Just let the guy hit. Let him be a DH there. Guarantee he gives you 30, 40 home runs. That's going to replace the production that you lost with Mitch Garver, who went over to the Rangers in the Kiner-Falefa trade, and then Kiner-Falefa got flipped to the Yankees. But overall, man, Sanchez, yeah, let him catch a little bit, but he's going to be great. Also adding Sonny Gray. They still need some pitching, in my opinion. Sonny Gray, it's definitely a step in the right direction. Dylan Bundy, sure, he can give you some innings, I guess. They still need a guy. I think Frankie Montas would be perfect for them. If they could have a 3 of Montas, Gray, and Bundy, along with Ober and Ryan, who they got in the Nelson Cruz trade last year with the Rays, I think this Twins team could be very dangerous for that Central. The White Sox, in my opinion, are not a lock for this Central anymore with how good this Twins team is looking. But then, also, how could I forget? Locking up Byron Buxton to a long-term deal. Good for them. You got to give the Twins an A. I mean, what the heck happened here? I mean, good grief. Are you kidding me? Carlos Correa on the Twins? The Toronto Blue Jays. Man, oh man, this team is going to look really good next year. Let's start off with the big one. They did lose Robbie Ray to the Mariners, but they turned right around and they brought in Kevin Gausman. Kevin Gausman, he really reinvented himself in San Francisco. Let's see how he does with the Toronto Blue Jays, but I think he ends up being really solid for them. Also adding Yusei Kikuchi, he's going to be a back-end piece. If we go look at the Blue Jays rotation now, it's looking deep, it's looking solid. Jose Barrios, Kevin Gausman, Hyun-Jin Ryu, Alek Manoah, Yusei Kikuchi. I mean, come on, this is looking pretty good. Bullpen, they added Yimi Garcia. I do think they could have done a little bit more for this bullpen. I feel like there was just something left here where I think they need another guy for this bullpen. But the lineup, I mean, when you lose Marcus Semien and then you can bring in someone like Matt Chapman who can definitely give you some good power. Matt Chapman last year, looking at his numbers, the on base and the average were down, but the home runs were still there. You got to remember, this guy had hip surgery not too long ago. Give him another season. I think Matt Chapman's going to end up getting over 30 home runs and just phenomenal defense at third base. You got some right-handed hitters in that East Division, man, and Matt Chapman, the fact that he's on the left side of the infield right there, it's going to be great defense, especially for that division. Vlad Jr. is only going to get better. Springer, hopefully he's healthy, for a full season. Overall, I mean, this Blue Jays team, fantastic offseason that they had. Very good, and I'm very scared of this Blue Jays team. And last but not least, the Washington Nationals. Hey, not an amazing offseason, but not a bad one either. If we go take a look at some of the moves the Nationals made, the big one was Nelson Cruz. Hey, that's going to be a solid bat. Nelson Cruz, 41 years old. This guy is still just hitting bombs out there, so that'll be a nice piece to go alongside Juan Soto and Josh Bell in the middle of that order. They also brought in Cesar Hernandez. The Nationals didn't have a bad offseason. They also added Anibal Sanchez. Didn't pitch last year, but I guess looked pretty good in his showcase. So the Nationals, they said, hey, Anibal, come on back with us. The big key for the Nationals next year, if Strasburg and Corbin, if Strasburg is healthy and Corbin can get back to what he was before, that's going to be huge for them. Josiah Gray, if he can take a step forward, that's only going to help. Bullpen, sure, they added a couple of pieces. Like, Cishek. They got, who was the other one? They also brought in Doolittle as well. So, hey, honestly, the Nationals, not a bad offseason overall. I'll give them a C. They made some moves, nothing game-changing, but hey, could the Nationals maybe be a surprise contender next year? We'll have to wait and see. So those are my grades for each team this offseason. Tell me what you think down below in the comments. Do you think I should have upped some grades, lowered some grades? Were they just right? Let me know down below in the comments. But that's all I have for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.